welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the third film from the series Department Q, A Conspiracy of Faith. We're talking about the Danish version. So let's see. A Conspiracy of Faith begins with a very old message in a bottle found on the Danish shore. The message is written in blood and contains a plea for help from two brothers, Paul and Trygve. The message is aged and partially damaged. Detective Karl Mork and his assistant Assad are assigned to the case, which initially seems like a curiosity. As they investigate, they discover that several cases of missing children from religious communities were never reported to the police, like due to those communities' isolation or their distrust in authorities. The Department Q team follows the clues linking the message in the bottle to those unreported disappearances. They discover that a man has been kidnapping children from isolated religious communities and that his methods involve psychological manipulation and violence. A central figure is identified: Jonas, a man with a complex psyche, juggling multiple identities and carrying a dark past. In parallel, there's a woman, Mia, trapped in a mysterious marriage. Her husband frequently disappears for long periods and she has no idea where he goes or what he does. As the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that her husband is directly involved in the kidnappings and in networks exploiting religious communities. We learn that the kidnapper's sister, Rebecca, and Jonas grew up with their ultra-religious mother, which was alone without a father, who suffered from psychological and psychiatric disorders. She forced her children to be excessively devout and to obey her without questions. From this environment arose severe trauma and abuse that would mark Jonas for life. And even one night, during one of his mother's violent episodes, she threw acid on Rebecca's face, permanently blinding her and leaving scars on her face. In that moment, visibly shattered Jonas first comforted his sister and then killed his mother with a pair of scissors. Through key moments, there are confrontations, pursuits, and situations where Karl and Assad operate at the edge of legality. They must conceal certain acts, enter dangerous territories, and provoke suspects to obtain information. In the end, they locate the boathouse, which is a cabin built on water, where the kidnapped siblings Samuel and Magdalena are being held captive. This becomes the setting for the decisive confrontation. During the fight, Karl is injured and loses consciousness for a moment, giving the kidnapper a chance to try to kill Samuel right in front of him, apparently to destroy Karl Mork's faith. But the scene is interrupted by the helicopter arriving with Assad, forcing the kidnapper to flee and hide. The final confrontation between Assad and Jonas is absolutely remarkable, symbolic, and deeply cinematic, the triumph of good over evil. The kidnapper, Jonas, has a violent past rooted in family trauma, a broken home, experiences of abuse and neglect, and resentment toward authorities figures. In his final speech, he declares, "I am the devil's son," and admits to having killed many, implying that the discovered victims are not his only ones, nor the first. The film, and also the book, ends on a tone of reflection and quiet recovery. Although the kidnapper is dead and the victims are saved, the trauma remains. Karl, who had previously declared himself faithless, now faces questions about belief. Not necessarily a religious faith, but belief in justice, in goodness and humanity. The film closes with a simple yet powerful scene. Karl and Assad leave the church, and just before getting into the car, Karl thanks Assad, something that had never happened before. Watching some children playing football on the grass near the church, Karl remarks that he used to think they were just a bunch of idiots dreaming about everything, having no idea about nothing. But maybe that's for the best. Ignorance is bliss. Kind of, that's the point. I can honestly say that this ending is the most emotional one of the entire Department Q series, in my opinion. It truly leaves a mark. The landscapes and imaginary throughout the film are absolutely fascinating to me, like an eternal Carl. Simple frames, yet perfectly composed, a house in a field of yellow flowers, a wooden shack in the middle of the water, the scene where Assad defeats Jonas, the way Assad rises above the water, everything filled with symbolism. The light, the framing, absolutely perfect. The eternal silence, eternal beauty, the eternal presence of God. By far one of my favorite films in Department Q. So I think one of the most fascinating aspects of this story is how faith or beliefs isn't just a background theme, but the very material over which the characters battle. The kidnapper exploits the community's faith as a tool of control. The victims are rewarded or punished according to hypothetical religious laws. Carl is forced to rethink the nature of faith. So, faith becomes both weapon and battleground. The unreported cases, communities refusing to talk to the police, and the tacit acceptance of how things are, these are social forms of complicity that allows monstrosities to continue. Quotes like "evil thrives when good men do nothing," and "we will remember the silence of our friends," captured this idea perfectly. In reality, many abuses persist because victims or witnesses stay silent, making this theme not just fictional but socially resonant. The antagonist, Jonas, is portrayed not as a pure evil, because no one is born good or evil, but as someone shaped by painful experiences, abuses, and neglect. The film simplifies this due to time constraints, while the book expands on it. In both, drama isn't an excuse but a motivation, raising the questions: how much moral control does someone still have after being destroyed from within? No one is purely light or darkness. Carl isn't a perfect hero. He has baggages, weaknesses, and crises of faith. Assad has his own gray areas. The kidnapper shows glimpses of inner suffering. This ambiguity is essential for realism and for showing that no human being is entirely good or evil. Everyone carries both. It's just a matter of which side we allow to dominate. For some, the dark side becomes a refugee or drive born from pain. For others, the light side is a constant struggle. The film turns the Nordic coldness into a character itself. Though the frames may appear sterile or lifeless, they're emotionally intense. The light through them is omnipresent. The landscapes are cold yet eternal. The camera moves slowly, creating feelings of isolation and unease, but also transcends. In the book, atmosphere is built through description and internal monologue. The film benefits from its stunning visual poetry. Absolutely sublime, in my opinion. Yet, this comes at a cost. Some of the inner letters and thoughts from the book can be fully expressed on screen, leaving the audiences fill in the emotional gaps themselves. So, as a conclusion, for me, A Conspiracy of Faith is a meditation on the limits of faith and the dangers of religious structures becoming authoritarian. It doesn't condemn belief itself, but shows that when spiritual authority lacks transparency and accountability, it can be exploited by those with evil intent. It also underlines the importance of speaking out, not staying silent. Silence protects the abuser. The story doesn't offer simple answers, but leaves us with profound questions. What remains after salvation? How do the wounded truly heal? What do we believe in when faith itself has been weaponized? So please tell me in the comments, what did you think of this film? What impressions did it leave on you?